Welcome to the Leadership in Land podcast, where we talk about what actually moves the needle in the land business. This show isn't about getting rich or quick schemes or magic mail pieces. It's about leadership, systems, decision making, the stuff that you just happen to figure out after your third or fourth pricing mistake, or maybe just your first. This deal looks great on paper, got in a moment. Well, tune in with me today, my friends, and let's dive right in. Hello, my friends. Welcome back to another episode of Leadership in Land. I'm your host, Dave Deniston of Generation Family Properties and the Land UnConference. Glad to have you back with us. I'm honored to have a returning guest to the show, the one, the only, Jessey Kwong from Pebble. Jessey, what's up, man?
Hey, Dave. Nothing much. Thanks for, having me on the show here and be able to share some insights here with your listeners. But happy. It's been a while. Happy to be on the show here.
It's been a while, and you're in Canada and enjoying things up there. It's about summertime, right? Is the weather nice and you guys getting outside?
Yeah. I never know what it is in Fahrenheit, but let's just say I've got T-shirt on here, so it's warm enough.
It's warm enough, yeah.
I was just out in Vermont last week with my co-founder, and we were just spending time out there. And man, first of all, I didn't realize how humid it can get already at this time of the year. We're recording this in early in the year, but my goodness, some places in across the States can get quite humid already. So I'm waiting for some more warmth.
Here in Minnesota, man, it's a land of extremes. Like today, it's May 28th and it's like 90 degrees, whereas a month ago it was like 40.
Right. So ranges are wild.
It's crazy. It's crazy. Well, as we were emailing back and forth a little bit, you said, "Hey, Dave, I have some new mailing stuff," and I'm particularly interested in this topic. I'm sure a lot of our audience is. And as we last year, we were sending out 40 to 60,000 mailers a month.
Wow.
And we had some properties we acquired and it turned out well, but we just see that ROAS number going down. And as much as we were trying to focus on, let's do hotter areas or do this or do that, and testing this, split testing this kind of blind offer letter versus this other one that we're doing. Let's do blue envelopes versus regular envelopes. Let's do this and that. And so it's become harder and harder and for a lot of us, but there are people that are succeeding at it. We've personally just kind of taken a pause from mailing for a while for our team, just to, number one, we have all this inventory we've been having to unload, which actually probably by the beginning of next month, we'll be ready to mail again and start acquiring some of those more expensive properties that hopefully this week, I think we're on track to sell like 5 or 6. So
wow,
we're dwindling down our inventory, which is great, which we had a lot.
I heard.
And
I heard.
We've really been trying to do more on-market stuff and more messy title type things. That's been the hot topic of conversation lately. So we're exploring all of that and trying to figure out where do we go. We're talking about mail again and focusing on subdivides and how do we want to go about that. So I think this is personally timely for me. So I'm going to be really curious to hear about what you have to say. And I'd just be curious to hear as well too, Jessey, with your purview of having Pebble and the CRM with a lot of different land investors have talked about how much they love it over the years. You deal with a lot of land investors and their businesses, and I'm sure you see mail volume and what is happening or not happening there with some of the functioning you guys have of being able to send mail out from the CRM. So would love to hear you speak to your reaction to all of that and kind of what you're thinking.
Yeah, no, thank you. And that's one of the great things, we're able to see sort of that end to end. We're not sitting in front of computers and, analyzing everything, but, because we handle that mailing and then we handle the, the responses on that and then the closed deals on that, we get much more of a holistic picture of things. Now, I do want to preface a couple things, right? So I'm going to be talking in averages here. And so I want to share, I was telling Dave, this is going to be a pretty short episode. I'm just going to fire off some stats for you guys and call it a day. But I will sort of dive into some thoughts on certain things. But one thing I do want to say, these are averages. So there are nuances to this. And I know a lot of people are like, Jessey, what's going to work here? Well, there's if it were that easy, right?
Yes.
But I think this will give some insight as to certain things that I've seen, and I've talked to a lot of operators that are doing high volume of mailing, and then it also confirms certain things. And there are some surprises when it comes to mailing, and I'd love to just kind of share some of that. Some of it's pretty juicy, and some of it is like, okay, that's cool, move along, Jessey. I don't have a lot, but I do want to dive into a couple of these things with you. And we can sort of start with the first one, and I get asked a lot, right, Dave? What mailer works? Oh man. And so, I'm going to tell you what works in terms of a, stats point of view. So
Mhm.
we what we do in terms of mailing here, we do, everything from letters to full windowed letters. I think that is an underutilized one. Full windowed envelopes, sorry, I meant, and then postcards. And when I talk about postcards, we have the 4x6 and the 6x9. Now, of course, you can do all sorts of stuff, and those stuff we probably aren't measuring. I don't know if you're doing like priority mail and express mail or whatever. Like, we're going to again talk about the masses here, okay? And so one thing that we saw when it came to mailing was the format. There was one particular format that outperformed everything else in terms of response rates, and this was one of the postcards. And I thought originally it's probably going to be one of the postcards, but I didn't know it's going to be 3x the amount of responses.
Hmm.
I thought it was going to be the larger one, but in fact, it was the 4x6. The 4x6 had outperformed everything else. This was analyzed across 3 months, the last 6 months. This was basically all of 2025 and 2024, and this was pretty consistent across every window. That this is not only deals generated, but actual response rates. And so it was really interesting to see that. Now, I think there is a few reasons for these, and I don't have data on this. So I'm going to be very transparent. I don't have on data as to why it's performing better. But on my conclusion on a couple things is, number one is the limited amount of real estate, no pun intended, but the amount of real estate on that postcard. That means you have to get across your messaging very, very concisely. And it comes down to two things. And I talk about this in one of the webinars that I run, but it's really, what is the problem you're here? What is the problem and what is the solution you're providing here? And so if this is if you've polled, a list of messy properties, that, messy title or whatever it is, you should speak to that. So that means there's going to be a lot more upfront work when it comes to the mailing that you're doing. This is sort of like basic marketing 101. I remember I had this 70-year-old guy come on to one of my calls, and he comes from like the copywriting world, back in the 80s, 70s, and the 90s. And he just talked about basic marketing and how a lot of people disregard that as well. And he also was a huge advocate of postcards. He's like, we knew this already in the marketing space. And if we look at parallel industries as well, things like solar or data centers now, they're using Pebble for the same thing, and they've already known this. Like, postcards is where it's at. You don't have to ask for permission to get that thing open. And please don't get fooled by some people that are sending postcards in an envelope. That is not a postcard. That is a letter. That is still a letter, just a cardboard letter inside of an envelope. You don't want that permission. You don't want to have to ask for permission. You want to be able to really quickly interrupt and then really communicate, what are you there to solve, and then what is the answer to their call. Like, what do they get from that call to action? Are they going to call you, but for what? And keep it concise. So
let me can I interrupt there just real quick?
Yeah.
So you said a 4x6 postcard, which of course that could mean a lot of different things. Are you talking about like a very particular template, or just in general, 1,000 land investors sent out blind offer letters versus neutral offers? You don't know what's on each of those things and how those templates are different. As well as I would wonder as well, like, as you guys are looking at users, I'm sure there's some people that send out very little, and there's other people that send out a lot. So how could there be skew at all in that data?
There certainly could be. There certainly could be. But and so that's why I said we're only looking at averages here, right? So the thing is, there's probably going to be a lot of different skews going on here. And so we're going to make the assumption here that kind of averages things out. But these are your initial outreach postcards. what's on that postcard, we're not going to be able to track, right? We're not analyzing, what people are typing on their letter, what do they have on that letter. All I'm saying is the 4x6 has garnered 3x the response, and I think that's a pretty notable, like, difference there. The letters and the 6x9 hover around the same in terms of response rates. I don't know why. It could be, again, a lot of people are trying to jam too much information on the 6x9, but I will not dare to go and make those assumptions. But I have my own theories, and I wanted to share some of those theories with you
Yeah.
guys. Some of you guys might call it cherry picking or whatever, but
Yeah.
these are the kind of things that I've noticed. I will also say the operators that are also sending out a lot of mailers are getting success with postcards. So take it for what it's worth, but 3x is notable in that. So I don't have any more details to drill into that, and frankly, it'd be very hard to do that. But at least in terms of a format, that's where things kind of sit at.
Interesting. So what can you give us an idea of the volume? Like how many postcards have been sent out
Yeah,
versus
we're talking.
like blind offer letters?
I don't know what the breakdown is, but it's pretty even across letters and postcards. But we're looking at across a few million in
Mm.
2025, and then a few million in 2024. So we do a decent amount of mailing. I will say, majority, a good half of the mailing is, your templated stuff that people are always just sending out. Probably a little bit more than half of that. But yeah, it is sort of a good volume there, at least.
And do you, part of the thing that we hear a lot of that I've wondered about myself is, of course, it's been tough the last few years for a lot of land investors. I know a number of land investors that got into a lot of debt, and they're having to restart their business in a lot of senses. Of course, there's new people coming to the industry too, right? We
Yeah.
have people that are staying, people that have been around for a while, but then there's new people coming in, and there's some of
Mhm.
these other people that are exiting. Like, what's your sense? What are you guys seeing, at least
Yeah.
from your business?
Yeah,
Is there an
certainly
overall
that's
decline, like
yeah.
in users, in mail pieces? I'm really curious to hear about that.
Yeah. I can't share everything on this show here in terms of
Yeah.
numbers, but we've certainly seen the turnover been a lot quicker. People
Mm.
are, I have to be careful just because these are things that I see and I notice, and
Mm.
who knows, it could be totally skewed, right? So what I'm seeing is a lot of people coming in and out of the business a lot quicker.
Mm.
People are not sticking around as they once did, where, maybe somebody would stick around for 12 months to give it a shot. People are sticking around like 2, 3, 4 months, and
Mm.
then bouncing.
Interesting.
We see a lot of people county hopping.
Mm.
So, send out a mailer here, send another mailer here, totally
Yeah.
different county, and then call it quits at the end of the day.
Mm.
We do see people scattering around and changing sort of the marketing a lot quicker as well. And then, like, when we sort of look at some of the more serious operators, they're not doing anything different. So, like, they're sticking to what works and they're doubling down on that. And it has been challenging for some of them. And then, I also hear things on the opposite end. Well, follow the market. And they've closed more than they've ever closed. And these are real numbers that I'm seeing as well. So I think a lot of kind of going a different direction here, but
Yeah. Yeah.
I think a lot of people are not realizing this is an actual business.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. For sure.
I
And
think
I think I've said too, I feel like there's a wider moat than there used to be, meaning that to
100%.
cross over, it takes more capital and stuff than it ever did,
100%.
which what you're saying seems to align with that thesis that I
Yes.
have, as well as those of us that are left, we're getting more market share, I believe.
Yeah.
Is kind of the bigger people are getting bigger,
Yeah.
is kind of been
Yeah.
my thought
That gap
process.
has widened a lot more.
Mm.
I mean, let's just take a look at mailing itself too. Like, mailing has gone down in total, but on average, deals done per mailing has gone up.
Mm.
And mailing is only going to get less. I mean, I don't know when this is going to release, but mailing rates are going up again. We were just notified. I don't know the exact numbers yet, but at this time I hear it's several cents. I think it's always several cents. It's always,
Yeah,
when
it
is it?
is.
Never several cents. When is it half a cent? So it is going, and so we continue to see that the amount of mailing. Another thing I've noticed, this wasn't planned to be shared here, is mailing sizes have gone down.
Hmm.
People are getting very, very honed in with their lists and where they're mailing. So yeah, I mean, ultimately, I think what's happening is people are putting in the work. The people that are doing it are putting in the work, and they realize this is a business, and they're like, their returns are continuing to give, and that, like you said, the moat for people who want to get in or trying to get things started, it's getting more and more challenging for sure.
And I think it also leads to more opportunity, right? So
Yeah.
that's the flip side of the coin.
That's
As
why, like, some people tell us they're happy when the mailing rates are going up. It's like, good. I'm not joking. I literally have people telling me that. They're good. I'm glad you guys are raising the mail rates. And it's just like, okay, yeah, it's not. That means less people are going to mail, but for them, they understand the game. It's a pay to play kind of win and a game, and this is a business at the end of the day. So
absolutely. When it seems like what's so hard for myself, even as I've been in this business since 2017. We're going on
yes,
9, 10 years being in the business,
yeah,
and the amount of options that are available. Before, it was so simple. You send out a blind offer letter, especially cheaper properties, 1 out of 200, 1 out of 300. Like, it was like a simple formula. And
yeah,
then you start questioning yourself. What's
yeah,
working? What's
yeah.
not working?
Uh-huh.
Let's try a postcard. Let's try a
Mhm.
blind offer letter. Let's
Mhm.
try a neutral letter. Let's do a different variation of this and
Mhm.
different variation
Mhm.
of that, which of course you can't see, as you mentioned earlier, people doing different variations of
Yeah.
different things to try and measure that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is there something that you think is underutilized? Like, for example, I know the AppKey brothers, and I assume you probably have something like this too, like a handwritten looking robot ink thing,
Yeah.
for example, has been bandied around as an idea.
Yeah.
Is there anything that's underutilized? Do you think, Jesse? That's, man, this could get a great response.
Yeah.
We've seen it work for people,
Yeah.
but nobody or very few people are doing this kind of thing. If you've been listening to this podcast and thinking, man, I wish I had a group of people doing this at a high level, well, that's why we created the Landon Conference. This isn't a sit in your seat, take notes kind of event. It's small, it's intentional, and it's built for real conversations with people who are actively buying, selling, and scaling in land. Last time, we had some incredible breakthroughs, and a lot of people realizing that they're playing too small. Just listen to what Anshul had to say here.
I knew a lot of people before I came to the UnConference. They are heavy hitters. They're doing amazing business. And I'm like, if these guys wanting to be there, I need to be there too. So here I am, first day, amazing, great people, great ideas, just having a good time.
And our next mastermind style event you don't want to miss out on is coming up in May 2027. And if it's anything like the last few years, spots will go fast. So if you're serious about growing in this business, go to www.landunconference.com and apply. Again, that's landunconference.com.
Yeah. One thing that I'm a huge advocate for hyper-personalization. And I think, like, first of all, messaging is like above all. And I think most people don't think of that, like problem solution. And, that's an easy one. I think a lot of people, again, don't do. But in terms of like personalization, I think like handwriting, like some people swear by it. Some people have tested this and haven't seen a difference. So you can sort of hear the two. I don't have data on that, but what I have data on is property image. Mailers, when they are using our satellite image for their outreach, there is a 28, it's pretty exact, 28.6, pretty much a 30% lift in deals generated. And there's no, for us in Pebble to pull that map image, there's no extra charge. Yeah, and we encourage people to do that because that's a pretty hefty lift. When sellers see their actual parcel on a postcard, that becomes a huge interrupter. It really stands out of the crowd. I got in trouble for doing this with USPS, but basically I had an envelope, a full windowed one. I don't think it's here anymore. Well, imagine it was like this, right? So I had the map of the property
Mm.
here,
Mm-hmm.
and so they could see it. But I also had the priority stamp. I made my own USPS priority stamp.
Nice.
I got in trouble with that. But what I'm saying is people are noticing stuff on, that doesn't require an envelope, doesn't ask for permission. But also that map image, when I throw it on there as well, has been great. And so coming back to the map image, I think it's one that most people don't think about doing because, where the only platform they're going to be doing that is on Pebble.
Mm.
And so when we do that, yeah, I think that has been a huge advantage for a lot of people that are keeping it hush hush and sending through mailing through us, is to have their property image on there. And that's been, that's been measured on our end, where, you're getting a 30% lift on that on average with having a map. So I think that's one sort of area, again, hyper personalization, seeing their property when they see that, when that mailer comes in. You only have a few seconds before that goes into that, mailing filing bin, which is the
Yeah, yeah.
trash can that they're sorting that through. So that is one thing that, you know, I see that has been working out quite well.
Well, one of the other things that I think is worth asking, which you may not have the data, and that's okay, but I want to ask the question as I really see there's four kinds of land businesses or niches within land businesses. We could even say five.
Sure.
One being the stuff I started out on and learned through Land Geek, the cheap, people call them desert squares, and not always desert squares. They're just
Yep.
cheaper properties on average, sub $20,000 market value
Mm-hmm.
being one niche. Another one being what I would call medium-sized flips. For me, that I define that as between 20,000 and 100,000 market value. A third one being subdivides and
Mm.
going larger. A fourth one being entitlements or those kinds of plays. So I'm missing something in there, but those are kind of your different kinds of business. As we look at the mailings, and you mentioned the 4x6. Is that any idea? Is that regardless of the value of the
That's
underlying
regard.
property, or is that does any one thing work better as we look at subdivide play versus entitlement play versus medium flip versus small flip? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't have any thoughts or insights into that as well. What the investor ends up doing with that property typically doesn't end up on that initial mailing. But again, it's typically going to revolve around what sort of value is being provided to that landowner. Are you providing them with options to exit out of the property? Are you reminding them to, make use of the capital of that property? That's as far as it goes in terms of what I've seen. As to what the exit strategy is, I'm not sure what that looks like.
I believe one of the things that I haven't seen stats on that I
Yeah.
think is underutilized, and I'd be curious to get pushback on this, but that I have a thesis on is that for those more expensive things, entitlement plays, subdivide plays, things like that, where hey, you could make 200, 300, 400, 500,000 is
Yeah.
lumpy mail, 3D type stuff. So that's a thesis that I have that we're going to be proving that out over the next year or two as we go about it. Get very snipered,
Yeah.
a small list, but your potential ROAS is huge. So you
Yeah.
spend more money to acquire those clients, but you're doing it to a much smaller subset. I'd be curious to bounce that off of you, see what you think from your perspective, dealing with
Yeah.
so many different land
Yeah, no,
investors.
certainly. I think if you have that kind of budget and you're going to do that kind of upfront work, I think it's worth it. You know, as we sort of continue to progress here, I think people have to understand there is a lot more upfront work that needs to be done before marketing goes out.
Yeah.
And so I don't care if it's a lumpy envelope to Star Wars stamps to
Yeah.
sticking coins on the envelope to a postcard. Like even a postcard, like it to me, the great thing about postcard is it's scalable in terms of pricing wise, and the messaging has to be directed to them. I'm a much more firmer believer in messaging over tactics, but I think if you have the bandwidth, if you have the budget, it's worth experimenting. And if you know the kind of landowners you're dealing with and you can speak to them, yeah, it will matter. Now, I think what matters more also is like how persistent you are in terms of what I call remarketing or following up.
Yes, I was
Yeah.
just about to ask about
Yeah.
that. Let's talk
Yeah.
about follow up. You spend all this money to hear back from people, you
Yeah.
finally hear back from them,
Yeah.
and then a lot of land investors don't follow up the way that
I'm
they
actually
should.
talking even before following up with a lead and following up with landowners. And
Mm.
so, what I mean by this is, let's say you've done mailing to a specific area, you've gotten responses back, doing a remarket to that same area, subtracting all the leads and communications you have only to those. And so, what's really interesting, and I want to share a number here with you guys, again, this is on average. When we send out a mailing and back to the same area, the second mailing typically, on average, garners almost a double the response of the
Mm.
first. In fact, the third still outperforms the first. It isn't until the fourth, fifth, and sixth we see diminishing returns, but overall, you're still getting leads.
And just
There
to
are a lot of
repeat,
nuances to this, because what's really funny is when we get into the 7th, 8th, 9th, and 10th remailing. Yes, certain people do that. We see an increase, now a increase, but that happens only because I think the pool of mailing and people who mail the 7th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th is so small, and they probably know their area so well that the responses kind of just, continue to climb up. So I kind of throw that out the window unless you know your area very, very well. Maybe it's a certain subdivision, it's going to continue to give. What we should look at is that first 3 to 4. I mean, heck, even remailing that second. And I know the next question is going to come is like, okay, Jesse, so when should we remail? I don't have a number for that because the time window, we weren't able to get that data. But what we saw was that the second remailing does still get you a good amount of responses. Some, on average, almost double your first, and the same with your third. So if anything, if you guys are thinking about like, cool, I work this area, I got a few responses, and I'm going to hop into another place. No, in the next 3 to 4 months, make sure you mail back out to that same area. Now, if you've gotten no responses, you may want to check what you're mailing out there. I don't know what kind of mailers are garnering that what sort of remailing is going out there that is increasing. Again, I'm just looking at averages.
and let me repeat that back just to make sure that everyone's
Yeah.
catching this, what you're saying. And please correct me if I've captured
Yeah.
this wrong.
Yeah.
That essentially what you're saying, okay, you send out one mailer,
Mhm.
and then some people have responded, but we know usually nowadays, I mean, heck, if you get a 0.5% response rate, that's good, right? So you're saying the 0.5% that have responded, okay, we're not mailing to them again. We're going to mail to the 99.5% that haven't responded yet. And then you do it a third time and then a
Yes.
fourth time. So that list gets smaller and smaller and smaller as people do
Correct.
respond. Am I understanding that right?
Correct. Yeah. And what I'm saying also is on that, the second time you respond, let's say to the 99.5% that didn't respond, you are going to get more, well, on average, people got more responses than their first one. And then even on the third, on average, has outdone the first response rates. And not until the fourth one, things start becoming less than that first one. What's happening there, I'm not sure. But again, this is across millions of mailings, but we do see that pretty consistently. So
I would wonder, as part of that, is there, back in the day, we would just send the same letter, right? You'd send the same blind offer letter again to the same people. So we would do remailings. It was a very typical thing that you would do. As a matter of fact, you probably wouldn't scrub out people who responded before. I'm just going to hit the whole list again. That was very, very typical at the time, with the thought being, hey, Visa, MasterCard, they send out credit card offers all the time. They hit you up 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 times, right? So with this particular idea, do you have any idea, and maybe you don't, and that's okay, but I figured we have to ask the question, what is the kind of sequence? Are people going blind to neutral, or postcard to blind to neutral? Is it the same thing over and over again? Any thoughts or stats you can give us about
no
the
stats
campaign?
on that. We're seeing a good mix of stuff. What we have noticed is people are, because it's so easy inside of Pebble to just slot in another template, that people are taking advantage of that fact and sending something else different to that list. But in terms of what's being sent out there, whether it's a blind or neutral, I know a lot of people are gravitating towards a neutral more recently because they just want a response and they want to get them on the phone. That could be that is sort of a trend that I'm seeing. I don't have any solid numbers on that, but that's what I'm seeing and hearing as well.
It's fascinating as we went through all of our data of the last 2 years as we were doing, okay, hey, what how did this go, and what did it happen, what we found for us, and this is just for us, so everyone has a different story and a different thing, so please, everybody, don't do what we do. You got to figure this out for yourselves.
100%.
We found that neutral did give us the highest response, but ultimately it was always blind offers that got us the most deals at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So you have to be careful about measuring response rates versus what actually gives you the result of what you're looking for. So as everyone looks at this stuff, and you have to have volume too. Like you can't send out 1,000 letters and think that's sufficient volume in today's world. It's got to be. What do you think, Jesse? 10,000, 20,000? What's a large enough sample size, knowing average response rates nowadays, to be able to say, okay, this is a large enough number that we can make a judgment call based off of this. We know it's not 1,000. What is that?
I'll take whatever I can. It's sort of one of those things. I mean, the more, a million beats 100,000, 100,000 beats 20,000.
Yeah.
It hits hard, and so that's why I'm here to share some numbers that are in the millions and can sort of give some insight. Even still, there's so many nuances. Like you said, is it offers? Is it neutral? And the thing about offers is, like, you better get your pricing right too, and you better know what you're offering out there, because if it's otherwise, you can get disqualified just as easily, and that's that can be also challenging as well. So I don't know what the question was, but I don't have any insight as to what specific letters are going out there in terms of follow up and whatnot.
Love it.
Yeah.
Well, what else? I know you had different things to share. You thought it would be short. Here we are, 30 minutes later.
No, I got one more quick thing here, and to wrap it up. I really hope this is valuable. With AI now, we're able to finally look at some of these patterns, and it took us a while to get this kind of data together. And one of the cool things is, inside of Pebble, we've launched a new insights area where you're going to be able to drill down into your performance of your counties, your performance of your letters, your response rates, your ROAS. That's just got launched a couple weeks ago. We're making remailing a lot easier as well. Like, we're a huge believer in I call it remarketing. We're calling it inside Pebble remarketing, where you're sort of remarketing to a list, excluding people. Anyways, I do want to touch upon one point that we mentioned earlier. This is not really going to be super useful, but maybe for those that are getting into this and kind of like have 1 foot in and 1 foot out type of thing. And as we sort of talk about this, moat is getting a lot bigger and bigger. So Pebble has a completely free plan. You can go in there and actually get mailing out completely free, other than you have to pay for the printing and USPS, of course. Some people think, like, is that free? No, you still have to pay for that, but you can get access and get your first mailing out. But one of the things that I thought was interesting, that those that are taking this seriously like a business versus those that are just like 1 foot in, 1 foot out. And I don't know if your listeners are a lot more serious in this, but if you're thinking about getting into more land and doing this, you do really have to run this like a business. Because when we look at our free users, which is a lot of free users in there, the ones that are actually generating deals and leads are almost doing a 1,300%, well, let's just say a 14x more amount of leads that are generated compared to those that are just getting a county out and doing one mailing and then sort of giving up. And that's like, you really have to think about this as a business. We cannot think of this as a turnkey model where we just come in and plug and play everything. And this has been probably talked about for so many years now. Yes, it was like that back in the day, unfortunately. And it's not like that at all. You really have to treat this like a business, and it will be as challenging as any other business. There is nothing special about land, I think. It is just another business. So don't get bought into the woo-woos and the wah-wahs of how great this thing is. It's challenging.
It is.
It really is. And
very rewarding, though. And what a great community
Yeah.
that we are all blessed with, those of us that are in this business. I mean, just some of the most incredible,
100%.
kind, generous people I've ever met in my life. And
I That's the one thing about land that is really strange. I used to be in the house wholesaling space.
mm,
I don't want to talk crap, but when I was there, it felt very predatory. It felt very, I don't know. Maybe it was my own issue, but I felt like I was being sold snake oil all the time when I was in the house
mm,
wholesaling space. When I came into land, I don't know what it is, it just people seem to be a lot more helpful. And if I had to suggest anything, even with any kind of business, is to build a network, get
yeah.
into, meet a few people. And honestly, it doesn't, when I think network, like, oh gosh, I have to go into a conference room and like meet all these people. Sorry, Dave, I know you're really on conference land and conference event, but it's great. Those things are great because you can meet a few people there that you're going to, that you become your little group where you share things. And these are the kind of things that where I see people have, and they accelerate so much quicker and they stick around much
Hmm.
longer and they get a lot more success in the end. And you actually end up building some really genuine friendships as well. So, but that's, with any business as well.
Sure.
Ultimately, what I want to say is please treat this like a business because the
Absolutely.
numbers say it.
Absolutely. Also, some other general principles I would share from my own experiences, which again, please push back on this if you disagree,
Mm.
is I think less is more. As we tested out even blind offer letters,
Hmm.
we and neutral letters, the more words we had on a page,
Yes.
the less response we had.
Yeah.
The less the words,
I
the
know.
better the response.
Yeah.
Keeping it more simple. I think the other thing that we really noticed as a trend, which again,
Yeah.
please push back on this if you know something different,
Yeah.
is a 2-page letter outperformed consistently a 1-page letter every single time.
That's not something I've even thought of to look into. Yeah, that's really interesting. That's really, really interesting.
Do you agree with the less is more,
A
or
hundred
no?
percent. And so
Yeah.
I keep my first postcard still on my desk. I'm like, how the so why was it back in the day we could get away with something you can't see on the camera, but like it is a full postcard of text. Back in the day, it was like the complete opposite, where you really had to filter people out. It's the opposite now. And I think this things have normalized, just like in the marketing world. Less is more.
Mm.
Concise communication is more important. That's probably why YouTube and TikTok have invested into short-term form videos. They know the attention span is a lot shorter, but I think it also challenges the investor, again, to get to the point, and really think about what am I doing here? What sort of value am I providing here? Get to your benefits. Again, I'll speak with parallel industries. Like we're working with some solar folks now, and they're really good at that. They
Mm.
know, they're just like visual. Like, okay, this is as they're reaching out to farmers, and here's why you want to work. Here's why you want solar panels, and this benefit, this benefit. Huge icons, done. Get the call. The farmers know exactly what they're getting into, and I think we need to start thinking more like marketers as well. And I know most of us are, but yeah, sometimes we sort of get pulled away from that because, we're running this entire business. There's so many things going on. And yeah, I completely agree with you. Sorry for rambling there.
No, no, it's okay. And I think sometimes too, it's it's kind of the classic sales thing of you talk, you talk, and you talk, and you talk,
Yeah.
and I think that's kind of that on a letter, that your spirit is good in that, but it
Yeah.
actually defeats the purpose of the other person talking more than you do, kind of a thing. So I think
Yeah.
that's the same on the letters, where it's like, yeah, just get to the point already, idiot. But it is interesting though that even though I just said that, I also said a 2-page letter. And I think maybe it's the attention thing that you said,
Could be.
of there's such a short attention span. You have to
Mhm.
have bigger font, less words, but it gets spread over a couple of pages to have people keep looking at it.
Yeah.
As well
Yeah.
as I think still the concern a lot of people have today, is this a scam?
Mhm.
Because there are
Yes.
scams out
Yeah.
there. And
Yeah.
so answering that in your marketing one way or the other, I think is so important
Yeah.
now, because there are
Yeah.
scams out there, and it is a thing and now with AI and everything, all of us are more wary
I know.
of what's happening out there. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think you hit it right on there. Yeah, there are scams, and we are sort of a lot more sensitive to our BS radar is just a lot more sensitive. We're like constantly seeing things, so keeping things concise and short is important. And that makes me think about, oh gosh, how long did I ramble on here? It didn't need, should I have been more concise on this podcast?
Hey, people know when they listen to podcasts. We're gonna ramble a little bit as we rabbit trail down different places. Well, I guess Jessey, let's wrap this up. Thank you so much for your time and just being
Yeah.
transparent about
Yeah.
what you're seeing out there and the data and all that kind of stuff. And if you
Yeah.
ever get to some of those really specifics, I would love to talk more about like the sequences that are working and not working,
Yeah.
or
Yeah. I
more.
certainly will dive into a little bit more. You've gotten me to think about a couple other things, but yeah, I'd love to come back one of these days and share more that I can find.
Awesome. And obviously we talked about Pebble, and of course you have your podcast.
Yeah.
Where can people find you? Why don't you plug that away so people can check it out?
Yeah. You can. The podcast is the Land Investing Business Secrets podcast, and then if you like really want to find me, you could like literally go to pebblerei.com, and there's a book a demo, and you'll literally find me. We'll be on a call just like this with me and you. So I'm not hard to find. That's where I pretty much live at. So you can find me those places. Sometimes I'm on LinkedIn. I'm trying to figure that out. I'm sometimes on Facebook, but yeah, if you want to just hop on a call with me directly, you know where to find me.
Love it. Love it. And I'll do a quick shout out for Pebble in that I'm not a user, but I think one thing I've seen you guys do is constantly iterate and improve it. You know, I've seen other CRMs in my time in the land business that went bye-bye and they didn't ever improve it. And I think you guys do a good job of constantly trying to iterate. So
Yeah.
kudos to you guys for still being here years into it and doing your thing and making the best product you can. So check it out, guys. If you don't have a CRM or you're wanting to figure out what's capable versus what you're doing now. So
Appreciate it.
all right, thanks, Jessey. Appreciate you. We'll see you next time.
Thanks so much, Dave. Take care.
All right, well, that wraps up today's episode. If this was helpful, don't just let it live in your head. Take one idea from today and actually put it in practice. That, my friends, is where the real progress happens. If you want to check out and keep the conversation going with other land investors like you want to make sure to check out a whole bunch of free resources and talk about challenges that we all go through. Please come and check out our leadership and land community on Skool. We've got bonus content, real discussions, and a free leadership course. No hype required at all. Just check out leadershipinland.com or go to Skool, that's SKOOL.com/leadershipinland. Appreciate you being here. Talk soon.